we go. All right, we're recording now.
Okay, we're at the side of the former Forest Park in Memphis and Madison Avenue in the Medical Center Division, or District of Memphis. This is the marker for Nathan Bedford Forrest III, the grandson of Nathan Bedford Forrest, the Confederate Cavalry General. He was a brigadier general and the first one killed in World War II. He was downed in a B-17. He was in the U.S. Army Air Force. It said he died while participating in a B-17 bomber raid in Kiel, Germany on June 13, 1943. Now we're walking now up to the pedestal where the equestrian statue of Nathan Bedford Forrest was located, facing south, from 1909 until December the 20th of 2017, when the city government of Memphis, the council, and the mayor conspired to have it removed by selling the parts surreptitiously to some crony for $1,000, a guy named Van Turner, a black guy that was a member of the county commission, not the city commission, but the county commission. He created a new entity called Memphis Green Space and bought this park for $1,000, and the land itself is worth well over $1 million, probably $2 million, because of its location. But this was done before the Martin Luther King 50th anniversary celebration here in Memphis, where they were bringing in a lot of liberals from all over the country to discuss where do we go from here, with the implicit assumption that we haven't gone near far enough. Well, Nathan Bedford Forrest was born in Bedford County, Tennessee. That's where he got the name Bedford for his middle name. And his father died when he was 15. He was one of over 10 children. So as the oldest son, he became the de facto head of the family. They moved to live in the vicinity of a fairly wealthy uncle who lived in Hernando, Mississippi, which is the capital now of DeSoto County, Mississippi, just south of Memphis. There was another family in Hernando at the time that had some type of dispute with Forrest's uncle. They called him out and, under some pretext, got into a shooting match with him and killed him. Well, Nathan Bedford Forrest, even though he was only about 15 at the time, challenged these two men to a duel and killed both of them. But Forrest was such a natural leader of men that the relatives of the two men that he killed in that duel all enlisted in his cavalry regiment, or one of his cavalry divisions or armies or whatnot, and fought through the Civil War with him. My grandfather was in the 15th Tennessee Cavalry under Forrest. Forrest was not only a great general, he entered the war as a private and became a lieutenant general. And furthermore, he was also a great private. He killed 30 enemy combatants in hand-to-hand combat in the war. And he had 29 horses shot out from under him, I believe it is. So he said that at the end of the war, he was one horse ahead. He was a true genius. Some English journalist asked Robert E. Lee after the war, who was the best general in the Civil War on either side? And he said, a man, sir, I've never met, Bedford Forrest, talking about Nathan Bedford Forrest. He basically came up with the tactics that became the tactics of tank corps and mechanized cavalry. He basically used his horses for fast entry and exit from battles and to move to places. Then he would get his men off of the horses to fight on foot occasionally, or most of the time. It was just a rapid deployment source. He was a natural Celtic chieftain, but he is the subject of a lot of slanderous misinformation nowadays, because the left has to cleave to their notion that the Civil War was first and foremost and basically only about slavery, and because Nathan Bedford Forrest made money as a slave trader, then he has become a primary villain also, because the Lincoln administration, when they were facing the presidential election of 1864, they needed something to get the public stirred up and interested in the election and interested in fighting the Confederates. So they came up with the fable of Fort Pillow, in which Forrest supposedly ordered his men to slaughter or massacre black Union troops that had put down their arms. This is not true. After the war, there was a court-martial presided over by none other than William Tecumseh Sherman himself, who was Forrest's primary adversary during the Civil War, who once said that they needed to catch and kill Forrest if it cost $1 million and 10,000 men and bankrupted the federal treasury. So that was not, Sherman was not a friend of Forrest, but he conducted the court-martial and concluded that Forrest had done nothing wrong, and he was not punished in this court-martial. In fact, General Sherman, when they were having the Indian Wars, made the comment that he wished he'd had Forrest working in the Union Army. He would put him right to work out on the plains, because he knew what a great general he was.
Let's go ahead and do a panorama while you're talking.
Okay. All right, we're now going around looking at where this statue is. No one knows where this statue is right now. It's supposedly in the Memphis area. There have been rumors about where it is. It was taken down by a crane company owned by Michael Hooks, who was, I believe, the grandson or at least some relative of Ben Hooks, who was the first black head of the NAACP when he was appointed in 1971. When I was a child, on that flagpole you used to have a Confederate flag. Now you have the United States flag. And you see that the Memphis Police Department has a camera recording everybody that comes up here and looks around at this statue. There is a poem that was written about Forrest that has I guess some of the most important lines are quoted there on that pedestal on the eastern side of the pedestal. We're around on the northeast part right now. And the equestrian statue of Forrest is just an incredible work of art. There is no artist today that could duplicate that. There is no statue that is being produced today that is anywhere near as lifelike in quality as that statue was. And it was just as I think that Confederate statues are cultural icons for white Southerners who had ancestors that fought in the Civil War. And the removal of these statues was meant to be and was an ultimate act of disrespect for people on the other side of the political divide from them. It was a way that the liberals in town were able to say, you people are politically impotent, have no power, and we can do anything we want to with your cultural icons. Of course, it would never occur to black people to, for example, remove Martin Luther King Boulevard signs, because those are cultural icons for blacks and liberals. But unfortunately, the golden rule doesn't work with liberals. They do not do unto others as they'd have them do unto them.
Let's walk around.
Okay. We're now going to the western side of the pedestal. It says 1904 is when it was erected. I'm correct myself, I think I said 1909, but it was 1904. Erected by his countrymen in honor of the military genius of Lieutenant General Nathan Bedford Forrest, Confederate States Army, 1861 to 1865. Another slander often told about Forrest was that he had a plantation in the Mississippi River, and he didn't tell the slaves on it that they had been freed by the 13th Amendment until 2 years later. Well, what they don't tell you about it is that that plantation was actually the penal farm where they sent prisoners, and Forrest was the superintendent of that penal farm. So of course the prisoners that worked there weren't freed because they were serving sentences for crimes out there. More slander, more misinformation spread by the left about Nathan Bedford Forrest. President's Island, by the way, was and is the largest island in the Mississippi River. After the Civil War, there were no trees on it. Every basic available spot of land on it was plowed up and used for raising cotton. That's how they supported the prisoner population back then. They didn't use a lot of tax money. The prisoners were basically self-supporting. And Forrest was the superintendent for a period of time.
Okay.